Welcome to the Inside Story podcast, where we explore the path to personal and professional growth. I'm your host, Esha Oberoi, and I'm thrilled to have you join us on this journey of self-discovery. Each episode, we bring you experts, thought leaders, and inspiring individuals who will share their own inside stories to help you navigate the challenges of life and thrive in all areas. Whether you're a team player, a leader, or a CEO, our podcast is designed to provide you with the tools, knowledge, and inspiration to bring your best self to life. So let's get ready and embark on this transformative journey together. I'd like to welcome our special guest for today's episode, Skye. Skye is an accredited Gestalt psychotherapist offering face-to-face and online counselling. Her work calls upon a variety of modalities such as Gestalt, internal family systems, body-mind practices, compassion practices, and depth work. This integrative approach enables her clients to discover their own unique path to change and healing. It can be a radical act to reach out for support, especially in a culture that rewards overworking, busyness, and pushing on rather than tuning in. So Skye has a special interest in supporting mothers, and especially working mothers who may be experiencing depression, anxiety, burnout, divorce, or navigating through co-parenting space. Skye is interested in you as a person and your stories and experiences that have shaped who you are. So I'm really excited to have you on our podcast today. Thank you, Skye, for joining us. I want to get started with talking about we live in a very, very noisy world. And now we've, got all of this pressure from work, other areas of our life, and then we're trying to navigate parenting, which is hyper complex when our children at a very young age are exposed to so much more than they used to be. What are the most common things that you're seeing, for parents and mothers that come to you for support?
Yeah, thank you. It's really a pleasure to be here. Yeah, I agree. And I was just talking about this recently with quite a few clients and friends about the general overwhelm and anxiety and having difficulty sleeping without anything in particular other than all of the obvious, which is we are just getting so much input and there's so much stimulation and noise. In 1 hour, we get more than what we did, maybe like 100 years ago, what they got in like a year. I think something, the statistics are crazy. So, and I think it is too much for our systems. So we are seeing a lot of, all of these diagnoses coming forth and, overwhelm. And so a lot of people coming feeling like there's something wrong with me, but I kind of it's not about something being wrong with us as individuals. I think it is a big cultural systemic issue. Mm-hmm. So I think that's important to name initially, that because we're a very individualistic society and we always think it's up to us, but there's a bigger kind of conversation that needs to happen. And at the same time, there are things that we can do.
Yeah. And so how especially in the working parents phenomena, there's pressure, there's a lot more competitiveness in the workplace as well. Like, how do we navigate and how do we balance parenting with that?
Yeah, it is tricky. And I think, I think there are a few things: awareness, mm-hmm. Talking about it, finding places where you can have these really open, non-judgmental kind of spaces to really, to connect with what's actually here rather than overriding it or avoiding or numbing. Getting support, asking for help, which I think is a big act in itself. A lot of us, we don't even stop to think, maybe I need to, reach out. There can be a lot of stigma around reaching out and asking for help, depending on what the culture of your family is, or what it was like for you growing up. So, and then there are little things that we can do, like, which often are big things. So just something simple like slowing down a bit, simplifying. What can you let go of? So these are all some things that they do sound simple and easy, but often then, they do take that mindfulness and slowing down to actually do. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and support. I talk a lot about support, not just, and I think it's something that we don't talk about enough, that internal support is needed, but also the external support is needed to make some change. So, we could a while about that in itself.
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense, because I think often when we're consumed and we are in the vortex, it's really hard to separate ourselves from the chaos and the noise, and that's all consuming, right? And adds to the anxiety and the stress that we might be experiencing in the moment. So it absolutely makes sense to have that external support, and even someone that you can trust who can help you sort of navigate through that noise.
Yeah,
Right?
that's
Break it down and help simplify what
yeah.
what it looks like, what it could look like.
Yeah.
In all of this, I think one of the things as a parent is like, how do you maintain trust and a strong relationship with your children?
Yeah.
Because they're relying on that level of leadership that comes from us as parents. But at the same time, it's tricky as well, because you don't want to kind of impede and impose, but you need to set boundaries. So what are some things that parents can do to foster and have really nice relationships with their kids, like balanced relationships and harmonious relationships, but also help set boundaries so there's that harmony at home?
Yeah. I really like the way there's a lady called Dr. Becky Kennedy, who is a child psychologist, and she talks about being the sturdy leader as a parent. And I quite like that phrase, a sturdy leader. And also along with that is really attunement. So it's the other word that I really use. So they can go hand in hand. I think a lot of, and I've noticed this for myself, when I get into this mode where we get into management mode, where we're kind of, it's so easy just to, get up, we need to get dressed, we need to get breakfast, we need to drop the kids off, and we need to get, to our work and then come home and homework and, bang, 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 bang. And you kind of, sometimes at the end of the day, it's like, oh my goodness, I barely, we just managed all day rather than actually connected and enjoy our children or enjoy one another. And that's so easy to slip into that mode because there's so much pressure and there's so much kind of at stake to keep the machine going. And so I think slowing down again, it might take something as simple as actually putting in the calendar, marking it in the calendar that we, an hour where there's no interruptions. We just, maybe have dinner, maybe you'll clean up together, put on some music, dance in the kitchen, really prioritizing those connecting moments as much, or those relational moments, as much as we prioritize the other kind of logistical things that need to be done. So, I actually mark off and will not allow any interruptions after dinner so I can read to my kids every night, because that's a big priority to me. We read chapter books, and so, between 7 and 8, that's the phone's away, and that's what I'm, so just simple things where you can really build in and prioritize those, connecting, attunement, relational, spending time. Yeah.
And Skye, I think also, just thinking back at my experience around this, it sounds really foreign. So for a person people that are used to now, if you're in a lifestyle where you're just go, 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 and you're so consumed and so busy in, like you said, the management of you're just managing, you're getting by. I remember being in that place myself, and anything to the effect of what you're saying, which about slowing down or becoming mindful and really enjoying those moments and connecting, was so foreign. I remember seeking help the first time when I knew that it was not sustainable the way that I was living my life. And, at that point in time, my therapist saying that to me, and it was so foreign. I was like, what? Is that even possible? So just thinking back at that time, I think what I found useful was that you only need to start with one thing. I remember it was just about changing one thing in my life. And then you get really comfortable with that one thing and you actually enjoy it. And then you realize, because you're enjoying it, it's quite organic when you then introduce another thing and another thing and another thing, all of which are sort of initiatives that you're taking to build and strengthen that connection with your children, as a parent that's mindful, and that's bringing in those mindful practices at home and in your time when you're with your kids. So yeah, it's quite an interesting journey, and certainly not something that happens overnight. There's a lot of
No,
intention, and there's a lot of ups and downs in it. Like, you know,
absolutely. And I'm
you
really
do it,
glad you mentioned that. Yeah. That it
yeah,
is.
like you do it once and then
Yeah.
you fall off
Yeah.
the routine again, and then you start again and you try it again.
Yeah. And it's not linear. You know,
No.
it's up and down and all over the place. And you know, it's crashes along the way and getting up together and okay, reevaluating what's the, you know, and often in those moments when it's really overwhelming and nothing, you know, nothing is going to stop or give you a break for a minute. It is about just going, okay, what is one next right thing I can do right in this moment? You know, when maybe there's a lot of stress and there's maybe even some crisis going on, or, you know, so many demands, and little people with big, big feelings and big people with big, big feelings. And it can be, what is one thing just right now that we can do, one next kind of good, or, you know, good enough even.
Yeah. And then as a parent, yeah, the stress that, you know, we certainly bring home from work. And then the reverse of that is that there's also stress that comes because our children are going through major life transitions and going through their own journey.
And
So
picking
what are
up
some things that
on all
you,
the things around them.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So what are some strategies that you recommend to parents in keeping that order in communication, keeping the strength alive in the rapport, and helping children navigate through their major transitions?
So I think noticing what's going on for you, like if the adults, if we're really, really dysregulated, it doesn't matter what you say, that their kids are picking up on that. So kind of learning, and this again is not linear. It's lots of ups and downs, you know, lots of practice. It's a practice to kind of, yeah, just check in. How am I going right now? How am I feeling? What's my stress level like? What are some of the thoughts I'm having? You know, do I just need to just take a few deep, slow breaths? That can be an amazing, you know, such a simple thing, but it can actually just bring some calm, you know. And then so that then more of yourself is online rather than offline, and kind of, you know, we've kind of flipped our lid. Having an understanding of, I guess, what's age appropriate is also important for kids. I think sometimes as parents, you know, and I think we're thrown into parenthood with not a lot of education, with not a lot of know-how. It's just kind of this incredibly important, massive responsibility, and we're just kind of making it up as we go along. So having an idea about what am I expecting from my children? What you know, like, what are some of my inner expectations on how my children should behave? Because I think that can often really get in the way.
That's a really good point, because I do think that as parents, sometimes, I mean, I think about my own shortcomings in that, you know, sometimes my expectations from a 7-year-old are ridiculous. And it's like, oh,
Easy,
actually, I forget that they're 7.
yeah,
Or I forget that they're only 10, and their level of comprehension or their responses are
yeah,
just not going to be the way that I would expect. So
yeah,
isn't that an interesting and such a simple
yeah, just
realization, is what are
yeah,
we expecting from our children?
yeah, just getting curious. I think curiosity is one of the best, most important things to bring to your parenting and life. Like if you know, when there's a dilemma or some stress or a behavior, often we get into this default or this automatic kind of a responding to the behavior or the stress, rather than kind of just stopping and getting a little bit curious, like, what is underneath this? What is below this? Because there will be a good reason. We can't see it, and it does take a bit of time to kind of go, hang on, just stop, just pause. And what's going on underneath this? Are there expectations out? Is there something going on at school? You know, are they tired and hungry? Are there too many activities going on? You know, are we expecting them to keep up with our fast-paced life, and they're just little people who need to be home a bit more? Yeah, so I think getting curious is a really good first step.
Yeah, I believe that. It completely makes sense, especially when kids are at a point in time where they can't necessarily express through words, what they're going through, having that complete awareness, or getting to that point, as much as possible, to have awareness around why are these behaviors, where are they playing out from? What's the core of it? Are they feeling insecure? Are they feeling like they're not getting enough attention?
Yeah.
What's driving the behavior, and where is that emotion actually stemming from, is such a real part of that practice of parenting.
Yeah, like that question, like what's the need here, is a really good one to remember for
Yes.
ourselves too. Like we're often in auto-reactive mode because we're so stressed of going from this to this to this to this, and oh my gosh. So even to do that, ask ourselves, like, hang on a minute, whoa, I just snapped at my kid, or why did you grab that, out of the fridge and spill it? Like, just even hearing your own tone, and then kind of saying, hang on a minute, what's my need right now? Do I need some more support? Do I need to ask my partner to, So, and then with their kids too, if they're having a tantrum, if they're too nervous, they don't want to go to school today, like they didn't like, maybe it's simple as I didn't want that sandwich, but even asking like, okay, what could be really going on here? And again, that is so tricky because it takes slowing down a bit, to kind of, to be able to have time to take a minute to ask that. I think the other thing I wanted to mention is being able to hold two things at once. So, like I've set a limit, I've said no, and also my child is really not happy about that. So they're really upset, and how can I hold these two things at once? It's not, I've set the limit, and often I think we think they should go, oh, okay. And when they don't, we're like, but if it's, so we set a limit, and it's okay for them to be upset. It's okay for them to take time to have to come around to, well, this is how it is, that these two things can be true at once, even though they might not necessarily feel that they're very compatible in that moment.
Yeah. So I think what I take away from today around parenting, it sounds simple, but it actually takes a lot of effort, and that's slowing down, becoming much more aware of yourself, your own responses. And then I think that then comes across in terms of how we become more in tune with, how our children are feeling. And then, that obviously will start to create a more supportive and encouraging environment at home when we're more present. Like you said, we're online as opposed to offline in our own world.
Yeah.
Is there any final words that you want to share with busy working parents in terms of creating a nurturing environment at home?
I think, looking after yourself is really important. Like taking a little bit of time to work out, what do I need to be able to be the parent that I want to be able to be present? Is there something in my life that I might need some tweaking? Because it's so worth doing. It's so worth taking the time to really just tune in to, where am I not getting some needs met? And then kind of, having a conversation with your partner. Maybe it's having a conversation with grandparents, finding some extra support somewhere. Maybe that means letting go of something, so that you can show up for yourself and for your kids, which will create a more harmonious, nurturing environment, I think. I mean, I do have some, lots of resources and recommendations. There's a wonderful podcast I mentioned Dr. Becky Kennedy. I think it's called Good Inside. She offers lots of really practical, very bite-sized, concise tips for parents, very practical, but very science-based too. So, and Dan Siegel talks a lot about the brain, the nervous system, how all of that can really impact how we relate and connect. I think that can be a big game changer, knowing that, having that insight. And there's a Lael Stone. She's an Australian parent educator. She has a podcast too, who's really wonderful.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Skye. I really enjoyed this conversation with you on mindful parenting. I hope that all our listeners also enjoyed the Inside Story podcast. We hope that today gives you some valuable insights and inspiration to really bring that nurturing environment home to your children. Taking control of our physical and mental health is quite a journey in this noisy world, and it truly requires intention and practice. So make sure you stay tuned for upcoming episodes where we'll continue to explore this theme together and create a community that's centered on leading purposeful work and life. Thank you for being part of the Leora family. Until next time, keep thriving.